Okay, we have here on this panel a wonderful team. And we would like you all, at the end of their speeches, can you hear me please there? Thank you. We are here to discuss the certain issues by very intelligent and capable people. So, I would like to start this session with Mr. Sorry. Please. Secretary. With Professor Arkomanis. He is the ambassador of the Hellenic Republic for Energy Policy and New Technologies. He's Deputy Vice Chancellor, City University of London. Thank you.
Good afternoon. For someone like me who has spent many years outside Greece, it is not uncommon to be the frequent recipient of questions about my country of birth. Last year, most of the questions were about, is Greece going to stay in the Eurozone, the infamous Grexit? And fortunately, the actions of the government, underpinned by the sacrifices of the Greek people, provided the right answer. This year, some of the questions that I receive are about Greece's presidency of the EU, as expected, but many others are relevant to this Energy Forum. Does Greece have adequate hydrocarbon reserves to provide a long-term solution to Greece's financial crisis, which I will refer in short from now on as GRENERGY, standing for Greece's energy prospects? This last question, I'm afraid, is not an easy one to answer, since they are not yet proven through drilling data, although the Prime Minister has recently attempted to put a figure on Greece's potential benefits by referring to 150 billion gradual income over a time span of some 25 years. For me, however, the main point is not how accurate this prediction is, but the fact that he confirmed Greece's position on the energy map as a future hydrocarbon transit and supplier country. Similar to stock markets, where the psychology of the investors determines to a large extent the value of the shares, discussions about Greece's hydrocarbons can be the catalyst for attracting investments, which are a prerequisite for successful discovery of oil and gas reserves. What complicates revenue predictions further is the uncertainty about the verifiable qualities and quality of hydrocarbons, the investment appetite of the oil and exploration companies, as well as uncertainties in the prevailing legal framework. All these factors contribute to the consensus that roughly about 10 years are needed from the start of exploration until producers see a financial return, provided there are no major environmental concerns during the process. Let us now consider the factors that contributed to the recent generation of interest around GRENERGY and the raising of the market expectations. First, the selection of TAP for bringing the Azeri gas to Europe, which is expected to become operational in 2019. Second, the agreement between Israel, Cyprus, and Greece, following the discovery of natural gas in Israel and Cyprus, with Greece becoming a key player in transporting it to Europe until Greece develops its own resources to be added to those of its partners. Third, the perception that Greece has been largely unexplored, at least over the last 15 years, for energy resources, especially in deep waters, despite frequent voices from experts pointing to the structural similarities of the sea basin as an indication of substantial reserves. Fourth, existence of a strong political will and consistency of approach through collaboration, probably for the first time, between the Ministries of Foreign Affairs and IPK, the Energy, Environment, Climate Change, under the supervision of the Prime Minister. Fifth, the completion of the first phase of the exploratory test by PGS, the Norwegian exploration company under license to the Greek government, and the communication of the results to interested parties. And sixth, the emerging realization that the Southern Gas Corridor could become one of the main mechanisms for reducing EU's energy dependency on Russia. Having explored the reasons why Greece is attracting attention on its energy policy, we need now to describe some additional factors which may or may not facilitate Greece's gas-oil exploration plans. First, good partnership is needed between the interested oil giant companies as well as between commercial and state oil companies in recognition that none of them is big enough to undertake alone such a project of huge risk and investment. Second, close collaboration between the supplied and the transit countries through intergovernmental agreements. Third, and very important, political stability in supplier transit countries. Fourth, EU's legislation framework affecting national potential benefits. Fifth, financial common sense in selecting best projects beyond any political considerations, but also social common sense in allowing those projects to proceed. And last, investments being as much as possible independent from national or EU subsidies. Let us now make the assumption that Greece does become the main energy hub or the turning wheel in Balkans and a key player in the East Mediterranean region. What could be the implications for Greece's and EU's foreign policy? It is widely accepted that TAP, the Israel Cyprus Greece agreement, and emerging hydrocarbon discoveries present serious challenges and opportunities for the EU, but also for the traditional oil gas suppliers, such as Russia, Algeria, Iraq, Qatar, and others. Interestingly enough, within Greece and beyond governmental challenges, the above energy developments may also have an effect on the medium-term plans of the Greek shipping community due to the emerging transportation opportunities and new exploration markets. Concerning the EU itself, its foreign policy could be shaped by taking into account some global considerations such as, first, EU and the US have experienced over at least 20 years a world over where 80% of fossil fuel resources were in the hands of OPEC and Russia. Over the next few years, we expect the US to replace Russia and Norway as the largest gas producer and Saudi Arabia as the largest oil producer, which both may have serious geopolitical implications for Europe. Second point, EU is vulnerable as the only major economic bloc without domestic fuel resources. Third, EU is committed to its renewable program, which is seen by some member states as adding costs at a time of austerity. Fourth, EU will have to import more gas, which increases certain risks. Can it be in the form of LNG? And we had that discussion before. And fifth, EU's response to the Southeast European energy development has to take into account its core commitments to its 2030 energy and climate change policy framework. Overall, Developments in Southeast Europe are not only going to affect Greece's prospects for financial recovery, but can also have a profound effect on EU's foreign policy through the unquestionable link between energy resources, energy policy, and geopolitics. Let us hope that political maturity and stability in Greece, underpinned by the prospects for financial recovery through Grenergy, would allow the planting of seeds for the long-term solution of major problems in Southeast Europe, i.e. Cyprus, which can lead to peace and prosperity for all concerned. Finally, I feel obliged to end my short contribution with a brief reference to the shale gas oil revolution in the US, which may not be very relevant to the Southeast Europe energy developments, at least for the time being, but is a topic close to my academic interest as the most important new energy technology of our generation. Most of you are probably aware of the frequently exaggerated press claims about the discovered shale reserves in the US and the lack of enthusiasm in Europe. But only few know that the success of the shale revolution is due to the perseverance, foresight, and single-mindedness of a Greek American by the name of George Mitchell, who started his research in 1981, and despite all the discouraging signs, he kept going, and we know where we are at present. So let us hope that there are more Mitchells in the offing, both in the private and in the public domain, capable of becoming Greece's champions for the development and exploitation of its yet untapped offshore and onshore hydrocarbon resources, and above all, to make the journey from Grexit to Grenergy a reality and a success. Thank you.
Mr. Manolis from DEPA, and he is the International Head Deputy Division, since 2007, he has been focusing into that field. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Jalal. Ladies and gentlemen. Now, the topic of today's summit, the road towards a new energy map, lies at the heart of DEPA's broader strategy. In this framework, we will present to you the Eastern Mediterranean pipeline, which is considered a new energy corridor. DEPA's goal has been to assume a leading position in the region and to foster the development of market conditions which characterize the more liquid and competitive markets of northwestern Europe. And this, not as an end in itself, but because greater market integration will enable us to provide more secure, affordable, and competitively priced gas for our residential and industrial customers in Greece, but also in the broader area. Apart from the European Union itself, its neighboring southeastern European region is especially attractive. And this is because southeastern Europe is a growing market in urgent need for both diversified sources of gas, but also of the corresponding infrastructure to deliver these diversified supplies. Since many of its states have a high degree of single source dependency, it is also one of the regions with the most catching up to do in order to bridge the gap with northwestern Europe. It is for this reason that DEPA's projects, namely the interconnector Greece-Bulgaria, which has been made reference before, the Aegean LNG, the floating FSRU in the northern area of Greece, IGI, but as well the Eastern Mediterranean pipeline, will all potentially serve southeastern Europe and Europe itself. and have been recently recognized by the European Commission as priority projects of common interest, PCIs. Now, let's now focus a little bit in the Eastern Mediterranean pipeline, the so-called by us EastMed project. As we have stated in several occasions, the Eastern Mediterranean pipeline is technically feasible because this has been conclusively demonstrated in the pre-feasibility study carried out by J.P. Kenny, nowadays Wood Group Kenny. This showed us that while the maximum water depth, that is approximately 2,900 meters, is challenging, the engineering required is similar to projects already implemented or ready to be constructed, such as the Medgas pipeline or the Galsi project. Moreover, the project's feasibility has been confirmed by a study conducted by the MIT and delivered to the Cypriot government in August of last year. Now, what are the next steps that we are planning for the EastMed project? DEPA has launched a couple of days ago an international tender for the feasibility study of the Eastern Mediterranean pipeline with a restricted procedure. The deadline for the submission of expressions of interest has been settled for the 16th of April. The study may be backed by funds from the Connecting Europe facility, where the EastMed pipeline, as a PCI project, is eligible to apply. But our next steps also include to establish a joint working group consisting of initially DEPA and entities that are involved in the exploitation of gas in the Eastern Mediterranean basin that will develop the pipeline and optimize the monetization options. Finally, to conduct a specific market research that will examine the prospects for the sale of the Eastern Mediterranean gas in Europe. To conclude, we believe that the pipeline option to Europe provides many advantages compared to any other alternative, since it offers more competitive tariffs to the target markets. Supply via pipeline is traditionally the most secure way of marketing natural gas, since it allows long-term contracts of the duration of 20-25 years, fact which also secures the viability of the investment on the entire value chain. The participation of buyers and of the sponsors that will develop and operate the pipeline provides additional guarantee for the immediate marketing of the gas. For producers, the pipeline's destination market is attractive since Europe, although currently oversupplied, still remains in urgent need for supply and route diversification. Our efforts from now on have as main target the completion of the feasibility study as soon as possible in order to obtain clarity regarding technical and economical details of the project. We believe that soon we will be able to share with you encouraging information on the matter. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Manolis. The next panelist and speaker is Mr. Forgive me if I...
Simone Tagliapietra, Research Fellow di Fondazione Enrico Mattei in Milan.
Yeah. Thank you.
So, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to the organizers for the kind invitation, to the scientific coordinators of this conference. It is a pleasure to be here with you today to share some ideas on the Eastern Mediterranean gas issue, or if you might prefer, about the potential Eastern Mediterranean gas corridor. The one of the Eastern Mediterranean is one of the biggest stories recently emerged in the natural gas industry. Everything started in 2009 with the discovery of the Tamar field in offshore Israel, a discovery which was followed by the discoveries of the Leviathan field and then of the Aphrodite field in offshore Cyprus. This wave of discoveries, together with the complex geopolitics of the region and the sovereign debt crisis affecting countries like Greece and Cyprus, and the related wish to fully and quickly monetize the gas resources, led to a big popular excitement about the Eastern Mediterranean gas. But what are we really talking about here? Well, if we look at the current situation, we can see a very fragmented one. In terms of gas reserves, we have Israel with considerable amounts, something like 900 billion cubic meters, the average estimation, with the Leviathan, the Tamar, the Tanin, and all the other minor fields. Then we have Cyprus, where we basically have today the Aphrodite field, recently downgraded by Noble Energy to 140 BCM. Then we have a very minor volume in offshore Gaza. And finally, an estimation, I will say a very preliminary estimation, of 700 BCM in offshore Lebanon, an estimation based on a seismic survey. So here we really need to start the exploration production in order to confirm any figure. In terms of energy policy, what we have there is the decision recently made by Israel to export 40% of its gas reserves. And two gas sales agreements have been made there, one with Jordan and the other one with the Palestinian authorities. As far as Cyprus is concerned, what we have there is a very strong political commitment to export that natural gas via LNG. In particular, the government is actively promoting the LNG facility plan in Vasilikos. A memorandum of understanding was signed most recently with Total. Talks are undergoing with Eni as well for this facility, but the current volume do not justify any development in this precise moment. As far as the export projects are concerned, well, here we have a wide variety of projects ranging from pipelines, the reversing of existing pipelines, LNG facilities, compressed natural gas, and so on. So quite a wide menu, I will say. And most of these projects are basically target the two key natural gas markets in the region, the EU and Turkey. Both the EU and Turkey clearly need to diversify away their natural gas import portfolio from the key suppliers, notably the Russian Federation. However, the situation in terms of gas demands in the two players is very, very different. In the EU, we are assisting to a situation of permanent disruption of the European gas demand, due not only to the economic slowdown, but also to the competition that natural gas in the EU is facing from cheap coal coming from the US on one end and subsidized renewable energies on the other end. In Turkey, the situation is clearly very different. We have a booming natural gas demand there, a demand that is likely to grow in the future as well. So Turkey could well be seen as one of the key export options for the Eastern Mediterranean gas, but politics is there to complicate things. The international relations in the region are very difficult. There are still open issues such as the Cyprus issue open, so until those issues will not be finally settled, it will be very unlikely to see any direct export of East Med gas to Turkey. So what we are experiencing now is a situation of great uncertainty due not only to the geology of the region, which is not still certain in the case of Cyprus and Lebanon, but also to the political situation there. So in this uncertainty, it is very difficult to foresee what will be next for the Eastern Mediterranean gas. However, we can still try to make some key points in order to have some ideas about the future. First of all, more time is needed for further exploration activities. This is crucial. Today, we cannot speak clearly about Cyprus because we need to wait Total and Eni to finish their exploration activities there, and this will come in 2015, 2016. So before we will have more precise figure, it will be very difficult to make any evaluation about the export option of Cyprus. This is true as well for Lebanon, as we say. Second, geopolitics will continue to matter. Flexible export options such as floating LNG, compressed natural gas will be preferred by the companies involved there without major improvements in the region international relations. Third, flexible options and pipelines might be seen as complementary rather than competing options, both as far as timing and export portfolio diversification are concerned. Just to provide you an example, nothing strange to consider option 1 for Israel, floating LNG, and a pipeline to Turkey if all the things will be settled down in terms of the international relations in a second moment. Finally, last but not the least, I will say, the concept of energy corridor is of course about security of supply, but it is also about the security of demand. Nabucco is something that can recall this point. The future evolution of the EU and Turkey gas demand will be a crucial factor in determining the evolution of the Eastern Mediterranean gas issues, or, in other words, the final shape of the potential Eastern Mediterranean gas corridor. Thank you very much.
Thank you. My friend, Dr. Tsakiris. Dr. Tsakiris is the assistant professor of geopolitical politics of hydrocarbon, University of Nicosia, and scientific advisor of the Athens Energy Forum 2014. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to the organizer for the very honorable invitation and the overall cooperation so far. I understand that most of you must be tired, some of you may be sleepy, and most of you might already be hungry. So I'm going to be as quick and as laconic as possible. I don't have any maps to show you, I don't have any charts, so please lend me your ears and your attention for the next 6 to 7 minutes while I'm trying to make 4 basic important points. Some of them have already been illustrated by a very good friend of mine and an excellent scientist, above all, Simone Dalla Pietra. And so I'm going to complement his analysis by making it a little bit more specific and analyzing what is important for Greece and Cyprus. Point number 1 is that when we're trying to do scenarios of policies, usually these policies and those scenarios are done with a very clear understanding of how much gas or oil you actually have in place. Right now, we have a situation when only 50% of the Israeli exclusive economic zone is so far been explored. And Cyprus, as far as Cyprus is concerned, we're only scratching the tip of the iceberg, essentially. We have one partial discovery which would be completed by the end of 2014 when Noble and Delat would do their second appraisal drilling, which will most likely result into a technical discovery of about 4 to 4.2 trillion cubic feet, which would then would have to be commercially declared viable as an investment. And then we have 5 more fields, the entire eastern blocks of the exclusive economic zone of the Republic of Cyprus, and blocks 10 and 11, which are currently the most important exploration program within the European Union. Greece is talking about finding oil and gas and is doing seismic and it's trying to attract international attention. It is about 6 to 7 years before the situation that Cyprus is currently today. Cyprus has the ability to explore. It has a clear regulatory and attractive investment framework, and it is doing what we would be happy to see happening in Greece, that is exploration and appraisal drilling, over the next 4 to 5 years. So instead of talking about hundreds of billions of euros over that period of time, it would be more pertinent and more useful, I think, to figure out why, for example, it's something we'll have to discuss next tomorrow, why has it taken almost 12 months to sign a production contract for a concession for 2 very, very small potential prospective areas in Greece, which is one in Ioannina and the other one in the Gulf of Patras. I mean, if this is supposed to be a priority, the tender began in January 2012. We're almost in Easter 2014, and still the contract has not been signed, even though the tenders have been selected since July. So why don't we try and address those issues first? And the billions could come after several years before we find out exactly what do we have. And we're several years before actually starting to scratch the surface in Greece, especially deep water Greece, which is completely unexplored. What is happening in Cyprus is very challenging because Cyprus, and that's part of the reason why I've moved my entire family there in my professional career, is that it is the virgin territory. Whatever is happening which is new in Europe in terms of exploration and production is happening now in Cyprus. And I'd like to second what our colleague Mr. Simona Chialapietra said. We need to give those companies more time to find out what could actually lie there, because those 5 fields, 2, 3, 9, 10, and 11, could hold enough potential to radicalize the supply of gas to Europe and turn Cyprus itself only, to the equivalent of Azerbaijan, and even more important than Azerbaijan, by this approximately the same time TAP would be completed. There is the potential, if everything is allowed to continue as it is planned, and that would have enough capacity to be found and discoveries to be made and be, of course, appraised and confirmed, that you could see by 2022, 2025, more than 20 billion cubic meters of gas exported via LNG to Europe. And by Europe, I mean anywhere in Europe. Point number 2 is that even though that would be the best idea for Europe, in reality, you would not see 20 BCM of that going to Europe. You would see significant amounts being exported to Europe, but the markets are not necessarily in Europe long term, they are in Asia. So as we talk about Europe and European energy security, Europe needs to understand the importance of that region and substantially support and enhance the capacity of the Cypriot Republic and its European allies and companies to be able to explore and evaluate and actually develop those potential resources. Because if it does not, and everything is done in the absence of the European Union or now without the active diplomatic support of the European Union, these companies and the state, the Cypriot state, which is the majority controller of the production sharing agreements with ENI, Delek, and Total, they would have a very good commercial reason to send the majority of those gas exports not to Europe, but where the actual major price attraction lies, and that is to $16 or $17 or $80 per million BTU prices, which are currently the situation in Asia. In Europe, we sell at about 11 to 12. So there's a big difference, a big profit ratio to be made in Asia. So do not expect the totality of total exports from Cyprus or Israel to go to Europe. And Europe would have to convince those buyers, we have to convince those players, and we have to help those players now in order to be able to convince them to direct the bulk of their exports, and by bulk I mean 70% of their exports, to these destinations. Point number 3. What we need to understand right now, though, because these discoveries are a future prospect, unfortunately they're not a reality right now, is that you have a variety of different export projects, but in reality, right now, there is only one strategic option available for the Republic of Cyprus. And this is not a pipeline to Greece. It is the building of a strategic LNG facility in Vasilikos, which is supremely more important and supremely more confident as an option for Cypriot and Israeli gas exports to Europe and around the world. Why is that? First of all, it has no transit risk. Secondly, it's much easier politically to build in Cyprus rather than have to cross an entire territory, which is not only technically but also politically challenging, to say the least, about the region of the Eastern Mediterranean. And thirdly, and even more importantly, neither Cyprus nor Israel appear to be very convinced that this pipeline would be the priority project. Over the long term, if new discoveries come, yes, these two projects would be complementary. But currently, once Israel has to export only 16 billion cubic meters per year over the next 25 years, It will not send all these exports to Greece or to Cyprus. It would do either one. There is not enough gas from the Israeli point of view to support Vasilikos, and at the same time to support the interconnector pipeline between Greece, Cyprus, and Israel. We need, and that's the third point, to understand that in Greece. We need to understand that these projects over the short term are mutually exclusive. They are not complementary. And the fourth point, for Greece to be able to benefit from these developments and really benefit by getting cheap Cypriot gas to Revithoussa and through Revithoussa all the way through IGB, which hopefully would have been completed by the end of this decade, and all the way on up to the center of Europe, would be to support Cypriot policy now. And now, over the next 6 to 9 months, with the project, with the target of mutually convincing Israel that it is in Israel's strategic advantage, strategic benefit, to sell 50% of its gas export capacity and send it via pipeline to Cyprus in order to be liquefied. If Greece does not do that, inadvertently, it is supporting not the construction of Turkish-Israeli pipeline, no. It is supporting what is more likely, politically speaking, it is supporting the option which several developers of Israeli gas are hoping for and are gunning for. And that is a very interesting and new technological development which is called floating LNG, which appears to be option number one for the major new shareholder of the Leviathan consortium, which is called Woodside. So, in order to conclude, the two projects are unfortunately, for the time being, mutually exclusive. Israel, if it chooses, it would choose one of the two, not both. It would not put all its eggs on one basket. And it would do it, it would probably choose something between Vasilikos or its own FLNG option and also exports to its Arab neighbors and not a pipeline to Turkey, because it needs to have maximum flexibility. Maximum flexibility of markets, maximum flexibility in its security of demand. And finally, by the time we have, if we're here 1 year after that, and it's the third Athens Energy Forum, God willingly, and we're still discussing these numbers, the Israelis would have already decided, and it would be too late. Cyprus would have lost about 2.5 years of its development, 1.5 to 2 years of its development, and Greece would have won essentially nothing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All these gentlemen here have a lot of experience, and they have, as it seems like Mark Twain when he said that if he wants to speak for 5 hours, he will prepare only 5 minutes. But if they want to speak for 5 minutes, they will prepare for 5 hours. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Anyway, I'm going to leave the questions from the floor. Please, if you be kind enough, if you like, and you are not ashamed of your name, please give us your name. And also, please make sure that your question is a question and not a lecture. Thank you.
I'll try to be brief. Thank you. My name is Kostas Andreosopoulos from ESCP Europe. My question is to Mr. Tsakiris, picking up from the last point that you have made. What are your thoughts about the Israeli government's decision to move on with CNG potentially and not an FLNG option to take advantage of the gas that they have now in production? Thank you.
To what decision are you expecting?
CNG. They are considering much more compressed natural gas now than the FLNG option.
No, they're not. The majority of their... Israel is a very different, it's a very opaque country. It might be the most democratic country in the Middle East, but it's also too democratic for its own benefit in sometimes in terms of the way that policy is made. You know the old joke, 1 Jew, 2 synagogues? This is the same true for the entire situation in the political issue. It is a multi-prismatic analysis that needs to be taken into consideration. The companies appear to be negotiating with everyone on everything, but that is noble and delicate. The only one who is actually clear about its position is Woodside. And Woodside, it is appearing to be in favor of FLNG, not CNG transportation. There are no major CNG maritime projects so far. And the economics of that are, at least to say, untested. The issue with an FLNG, and I'd like to also to give the floor to Simone, I'd like to hear your opinion on that. Excuse me for playing the moderator now. But the problem with FLNG is the fact that it's also an untested technology. Woodside appears to be interested in joining Israeli Leviathan with 25% of the consortium which is developing on the condition that FLNG is chosen. Now, if that would be the case, it would be the first FLNG in the region, and it would be a specific investment risk for the Israeli government, which would have to take the final decision. It's not up to the companies. For any export of gas from Israel, the Israeli state would have to concede and give its approval for export. So it would be equally important. I don't know what would be the best option for Israel right now, or where they would be most likely to decide. But I think that they would go for maximum flexibility. They would choose pipelines, plural. That's why I think exports to their Arab-friendly states would be most politically and economically pertinent to their interest, especially after General Sisi inherits Mr. Mubarak's legacy in Egypt. And secondly, they would choose for the most flexible option of LNG. The big question for me is whether they would choose an LNG in Cyprus or they would go for the higher risk, technical risk of an FLNG.
Yeah, I completely share your ideas that the CNG is a technology not yet being tested. We had a try in the issue of Turkmenistan in order to avoid the Trans-Caspian pipeline to build that CNG. It was Eni proposing that project, but finally we didn't make it. So I think that really FLNG is going to be the first choice for Israeli exports. A FLNG facility will cost a little bit less than an LNG facility, but it will provide Israel more flexibility. And the issue of security is certainly a very important one when dealing with Israel. So for them, it is, of course, better to have their own facility rather than relying on Cyprus for their first exports. And I think that the LNG in the pipelines and so on will come later on if, particularly in Cyprus, additional volumes will be found in the area.
Not on the CNG issue, but I would like to add something on what my friend Theodore said before about about the complementarity of the LNG option and the pipeline option through Greece. As we all know, Israel has decided to export approximately 16 BCM per year, as Theodore mentioned. Also, Cyprus is planning to export some gas, and we don't know where. Now, the point is, first of all, that the Eastern Mediterranean pipeline, the project that we are promoting, and I have to add here that it is promoted in cooperation with the Cypriot government. So there might appear to be a strategic decision from the Cypriots, but the Cypriots also promote the pipeline option, so no decision has been taken. I fully share what has been told by previous speakers, that decision time and quantities is a very big question, meaning we will not be in a position to know what are the exact quantities before 2015, best case. I heard during the previous break that probably we will have some more secure news by 2016. And then it's a very big question that for sure will affect all possible options, that is geopolitics. Geopolitics, as we have read different articles, okay, they say the pipeline option, it might be difficult to be realized because of the geopolitics in the area, but geopolitics in the area will affect and are affecting each possible solution. So what, at the end of the day, and this has been mentioned in the previous panel, what the final decision will be taken, I think, we believe, based on economics and on the commercial basis. Our main target now is to complete as soon as possible the feasibility study in order to have a clearer picture of what's going on. I can tell you, because we have said it also publicly in the past, the pre-feasibility study has shown to us that the project, the pipeline option is very, very attractive and can be very, very attractive for producers. We have a big experience from our involvement in IGI, and our economics, our calculations show that for producers, what they will get in their pocket, it will be a price in Italy, PSV price, minor $4 per MBTU. So this is really, really attractive. Numbers we have seen about LNG or CNG start from $5.2, $5.3 as transportation cost. So we firmly believe that in order to be, for everyone in a position to make a secure, as more possible secure choice, all choices have to be exploited. And time will be very, very helpful in order to understand what are the quantities and how geopolitics evolve.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Fadi Abu Alfa from Middle East Economic Survey. My question is actually to everyone on the panel. Are we making maybe a bigger deal about the Levant than it really is? With only 2% of the 6,600 trillion cubic feet of world-proven reserves, are E&P companies going to be more interested in developing shale gas, oil and gas deposits in Algeria and Libya, which already have a pipeline infrastructure from the Maghreb-Algeria pipeline?
If your question is about the possible competition between East Med gas and North African one, I think those are two different, worlds, and they can absolutely live together, considering that hopefully in the future the EU gas demand will grow, not only because hopefully of a better economic condition in the EU, but also because of the decarbonization policies and the growing role of natural gas in the energy mix in Europe. So I think that both the areas will be crucial together, and I think they will not have to compete that much in the future.
Thank
Yes,
you.
and-
Anybody?
Excuse me.
There.
Thank you very much. My name is Barış Kalkavan. I am the counselor of the Turkish Embassy here in Athens. Well, it was a very interesting debate. I thank all the speakers for valuable contributions. Well, I am not an energy expert, but as a diplomat, I can see some factual things that, and please correct me if I'm not mistaken. First of all, the resources in the Levanten area, Tamar, Aphrodite, whatever, has to be joined to be transported. I mean, in a pool and be evaluated all together. Another thing is Turkey is the closest and the biggest market to these resources. And another thing is Turkey is also a transit country for energy. And at the immediate vicinity we have Iskenderun, the port facilities and natural gas depositing facilities with its infrastructure. And I also would like to mention that we also had some feasibility works for pipeline through the shore of the Eastern Mediterranean and reaching Iskenderun. And we can see that it is the cheapest and the easiest pipeline to carry the gas to the markets, both to east and to west. Well, with all these facts in mind, I have to mention that we also made these studies as a complementing route, not a competing route. Having this pipeline doesn't mean that it will kill a pipeline to Crete to carry the gas directly to EU or an LNG. But when you consider the costs, it really means something. And well, lately we have this window of opportunity to solve the Cyprus problem. I mean, considering this gas issue as an opportunity would work to the benefit of everybody on the island and in the region. So we believe that the gas resources in the region should be an opportunity for us, not a new burden on the problem. So with this understanding, we expect all energy circles to maybe push or just help all the actors in the region to solve the Cyprus problem, which is in a new era now. And I just want to finish with saying that, well, everybody has the interest, and if there's a will, I am sure we will find a way to do it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. What was your question?
Sorry for the intervention and taking your time.
All right. No. Anybody else for a question, please?
Can we?
If I am allowed, I would like to make a comment. Actually, yes, I will not enter to the geopolitics and DEPA is a company. We are looking on things based on business-wise. Now, what I would like to add, yes, you're right. One of the options for exporting gas, either to Turkey or through Turkey to Europe, is a project promoted from our friend Matt Bryza, a Turkish project. Now, there are some big questions there on the, not so-called on the if the project is feasible or not, but on the economics of the project, since it will, according to our understanding, it will require a lot of, if not improvements, but probably building completely new infrastructure that will allow gas to be exported to the rest of Europe. But
okay.
This is the first point. And the second point is that...
Maybe he has a comment also on a comment.
No, it was not.
Good, continue.
No, and as we said, all options are on the table. At the end of the day, it will be the market that will decide.
Thank you.
May I add
we
to
were
that?
talking not about the projects, actually. What is serious about that, about 15 years ago, I was in a similar situation, and we are talking about the same thing. What the hell is going on? So please, where are the issues that put various obstacles in front of good projects? All of them are good projects. We know that they are good projects. We know that there are X number of gas somewhere there. What is stopping everybody from doing that? Is it Ukraine? Is it Alaska? Or is it Greece? Or is it Turkey? Or is it, and why? These are the questions that everybody must answer, internally and externally. But maybe you don't have the guts to do that. That's all. Sorry.
Mr. Chairman.
I'm not part of the panelists, but I'm a moderator. Any question before we leave? Thank you very much. Bye.